Okay, let's go. Knights are the easiest piece to develop because it's pretty much idiot-proof. There's only one square for them to go to. This is their natural squares, C3 and F3. You don't want to put them on the edges. It's ridiculous. So you put them on C3 or F3. See how hard that is? Now, there's some other systems where, like you see in the London, the knight will go to D2. Well, this is a system. White has a system he's playing. But if you want to play some kind of London, there's a very knight-friendly London system called the Jabava London. It's actually one of the best ways to develop all your pieces. Okay, let's look at the Jabava and see what the knights are doing. So, white goes D4. So already, white, knight to C3. Look at that. How hard is that? He doesn't want to go here, block that in. Knight to C3, not here. And another key is, he's actually developing it. How often do you see on move 21, this knight's still sitting here for some reason? Knight's out, and black. Hey, I'm going to develop my knight too. Look at that. So in the Jabava London, you play your bishop to F4. Black does something. And then you go E3. See, this is similar to the London, where the London, this is here, and the knight will go here. But this is a much simpler setup. So, black's just playing for the super center, solid. Okay, look at knight here. Idiot proof. It's the only square it can go to that makes any sense. You don't want to go here or here, and you want to actually develop it. You don't want to leave it there for 3 weeks. Like, you see a lot of people, I'm not going to develop my knight. Just develop. Okay. Black gets ready to castle. White plays bishop to D3. Now look at the development here from this opening. Look at where the knights are. So simple. Even Makeshift could figure this out. What? Bishops are fantastic. I have a video on proper use of bishops too if you want to check it out. I'll put the link in the description. All right, so black moves. White plays up. Black castles. Okay, we'll just castle kingside. All right, now look at the difference in positions here. Look at how beautiful your pieces are. But look at your knights, nice and simple. His knight's here. It's not the end of the world, but you know, it's blocking in the bishop. And anyway, so in review, develop your knights and put them on their most simplest squares. Once you've developed all your pieces, you want to find good squares for your knights in the middle of the board, because a knight in the center controls 8 squares. A knight in the center of the board's fantastic. Like, a knight in the rim is dim. If you put a knight here, it controls half as many squares, only 4. And if you put a knight in the corner, well, frig, you only control 2. This is absolute trash. So, you want to find an outpost for your knight in the center of the board, in the opponent's camp. Now, the key when you find an outpost for your knight is you want to find a square that cannot be attacked by an enemy pawn, because if there's an enemy pawn that can attack your knight, then that's not much of an outpost. So this is an example of a fantastic outpost. Center of the board, other pawns cannot attack it. The only way to get rid of this thing is your opponent would have to, say, attack it with a knight. That's the only way to challenge it. And in such situations, you can, even if your other knight's handy, you can just back it up. So if there's an exchange, you still have this super knight in the middle. Okay. So now, change the board a bit here. Okay, so let's look at this position. So you're white and you're like, oh, okay. I'm going to put my knight in the center of the board. Look at me. Look at how centralized and powerful that knight is. Well, actually, black can attack that knight's operation base. See that? Look at. So this is only a temporary outpost. Like, this might be a decent move. You centralize your knight for whatever reason, whatever's going on. But it's not a permanent outpost because a pawn can attack that square. Okay, let's put this here. So you can be on the lookout for outposts that are more permanent. Like, okay, say you do go here, you're like, ah, I'm all developed. Look at me in the center of the board. Look at my outpost. And then black's like, well, no, you don't have an outpost. Look at, I'm attacking you. You have to leave now. So white's looking around. So white's like, well, I could go here, but I'm not supported by one of my own pawns. And then white's like, gee, if I could go to this square, look at this square, how awesome it is. Pawn supported by the knight on an outpost, and this knight can no longer be attacked by an enemy pawn. That's the key. So white's like, okay, you want to kick me out of that base? I'm going to hop over here, and the next move, I'm going to put my knight here. Look at that outpost. So a really good outpost is your knight protected by one of your own pawns, and the enemy cannot attack your knight with a pawn. That's a fantastic outpost. So you should always try to be on the lookout to centralize your knights and find a great outpost for them that's permanent, one that cannot be attacked by enemy pawns. On an open board, knights got to be careful that a bishop won't trap them. Like in this position, say white wants to attack this black bishop here. Well, it could do the nice centralizing knight move, nice in the center of the board, it attacks the bishop, fine. Or, for some reason, you'll see some people put the knight on the rim, which is dim. The knight will go on the rim, and you're still like, well, I'm still attacking the bishop. But here the bishop can make this move, bishop to d4. Now look at this. All of the knight's squares are covered by the bishop. This bishop just trapped this knight. So be careful of putting your knight on the edge of the board because a bishop can sometimes trap it. Another pitfall you got to be careful of is knights hate passed rook pawns in the endings. Knights have a hard time dealing with them. Like here, black's pushes, black wants to get a queen, so this push attacks the knight, so you have to move someplace and you got to figure out how to stop the pawn from queening, and there really is no good move here. Like no matter what you do, if you try a more centralized move and then you want to double back, the pawn advances and there's no way to protect that square. If you go here, he just gets a queen. Here he gets, there's no way to defend it. You could attack the pawn, but he just gets a queen anyway. So be careful with knights if you have a knight in the ending and there's passed rook pawns, be very careful. One of the strengths of a knight is its ability to blockade pass pawns. It's very good at that. So in this position, white's attacking the black pawn. So black starts advancing and he's attacking the knight. Okay? So the knight moves away like that. The pawn keeps advancing, and then the knight drops itself right in front of the pawn. The knight is now blockading the pawn. This is a good square, a good blockading square. This pawn can't go anywhere anymore, and there's no other pawns to kick the knight. So if you can use your knight to blockade pass pawns, it's the most efficient piece to do so with. If you go into an endgame and it's bishop versus knight, you don't really want to be the side with the knight. Even though material's equal here, black has the better chances because the bishop is just high flying, can just fly like the wind, where the knight's just, you know, short-winded in the open board. Like even here, the bishop controls all the knight squares, and as we've just talked about, rook pawns, eventually black's going to get a pass rook pawn, so not only is the bishop superior to the knight in an open position in the endgame, in this particular case, he'll get a pass pawn, a rook pawn, which is really difficult for the knights to defend. Yes, white will get a pass pawn too, say, but that's no problem. Black will just defend this, and anyway. So in an open board, avoid the knight if you have knight versus bishop. If you have a knight and it's a closed position in the ending, that's what you want. You want to be the person with the knight. If all the pawns are blocked and black has a bishop, your knight is just absolute monster versus this bishop. Like, say it's white's turn. Like, even in this position, see how this bishop on a dark square can't even protect this pawn. Even in this position already, white has knight there, check, and then knight take pawn. and black's position isn't any better. He's still got the block pawn chain, knight, superior knight versus bad bishop, and now he's down a pawn. So always try to go head for, if you got the knight, head, if you can see the position is blocked, head for an ending with your knight versus a bishop. Okay, makeshift, tell them about queen and knight, how well they work together.
Okay, so the queen and the knight coordinate very nicely when attacking. Like, okay, for example, in this position, black's like, okay, I'm going to attack your queen. Your queen protects your knight. I'm attacking it, and when the queen moves, I'll just take your knight. But white has the devastating knight to h6 double discovered check. Look at check, check. When there's two pieces checking you at the same time, only the king can move. So the king moves, and then white flies down with his queen with the unbelievably brilliant queen to g8 check. So let's see now. The king is in check. You have to take it. No choice. And then you come back with the super genius knight to f7 checkmate. See how the knights checks and there's no escape for the king. So queen and knight work very nicely together when attacking.
All right, let's look at the knight's superpower, the knight fork. Knight forks can be devastating. I'm sure all of you have been knight forked many times and you have nightmares about it. So, let's take this position. So now, white's like, if white could go knight take pawn check, look at check, he would create a super family fork. But he can't because of pawn take knight. So, white sees a couple of ways to proceed here. He gives bishop take pawn a try. Now, black cannot go king take bishop because the knight protects it, and black is unwary of the danger. So he goes pawn take bishop, and the pawn is no longer protected. The knight flies in, check, super fork. King, rook, and queen are all checked. The king moves, knight take queen, and you won your opponent's queen. Okay, let's practice some basic knight forks. So it's white to move in this position. Can you find the winning knight fork? The answer? Knight to e5 check. Forks king and rook. The king will move, and then knight take rook. And you won the opponent's rook. All right, in this position, black has a considerable advantage. Bishop versus knight in an open board in this endgame, and this pawn is getting closer to queening and queening. So knight is attacking the pawn. So black pushes it. Black is threatening the queen. Now, knight has the nice blockading square, knight to b1. Remember we talked about? Knights make fantastic blockaders of pawns. But white has the better move. Can you see a better move for white here? Give you a second. That is correct. Knight to c4, check. And the knight fork again prevails. King, and then you just take there. Now you don't have to worry about blockading. The pawn is gone now. There's no more worrying about the pawn queening. All right, you're white in this position, and you're looking around, and you're thinking, gee, I would love to go knight here, forking king and queen. But the problem is, black's defending that square with his knight, so he's got it figured out. Black's like, you can't do that. But it's white's turn, so he's like, well, if I can get the knight here, I win the queen. But this knight stops it. So what can I do? Can you think of any ideas? Well, white can remove the knight. Bishop take knight check. Look at that. The knight is no longer protecting this square because it's now gone. So, black's like, okay, well, I'll just take your bishop back. And the knight is no longer defending the square. You fly in, knight to e5, and you fork king and queen again. That's called removal of the guard. That knight here was guarding this square. So by removing the guard, you were able to continue your plan of the knight fork. Check. and then knight take queen. Well, here's a tricky situation. Actually, black looks pretty dead loss, but the only thing is, it's black's turn. He's about to get a queen. So, in this position, let's black queens. So black queens, but the problem there is with the queen and the bishop, white has check, and this is the only move, and checkmate. Okay? So queening the pawn actually loses the game in that situation. So, but black can do something. Black has the super move under promoting to a knight. Under promotes to a knight with check. Look at knight fork. Super save. King moves. Knight take queen. King take knight. And the game is a draw if there's just only a bishop. So be on the lookout for under promoting to a knight. Every now and then it can happen and save your ass. So if you want to play an idiot-proof game with simple development, play the Jabava London. Let's just quickly go over it again. Knight to c3, knight on its most natural square. Black plays the same idea. Okay, white does that. He does his London setup. Bishop's outside the pawns before playing e3, good. Bishop goes there, knight comes out. And let's see. Black's like, I'm going to put my knight too on its best square because I want to be like white. Now, the one thing about the Jabava London is black's got to be careful about the c7 pawn. See how the bishop's attacking it? So actually in this position, white can drop in with the knight and attack here. And when you look around, there's actually no way for black to defend this. He could block, but he just loses a pawn there. So he could block, he'll lose a pawn there. So since white's threatening knight take pawn check with a forking king and rook, black's like, oh well, I'll lose that pawn again. And so white comes in, knight take pawn. So now he's attacking the rook. So the rook has to move. And then you could safely hop out, say. It attacks the rook again, so the rook has to move again. So basically you've won a pawn for nothing. So keep on the lookout for the knight jump, knight to b5, hitting c7. You know, whilst making sure you complete your development properly.
Remember, put your knights on their most natural squares, okay? And actually bring them out.